Okay, hello. Hello, hello. We're here with another episode. Today we have on the beautiful Christine Hotchkiss.
Welcome.
Yes.
Thank you.
And she's going to talk about grief and healing and how when you think you have experienced the worst thing that you could even imagine experiencing, and you think that there's no coming back from that and no making your life happy again, she is living proof that that is actually possible and that there is life after loss and tragedy. And she's going to just share a lot of her own personal journey, and you guys are going to love her, I promise you. I adore her. So
I'm just saying, can we get a show of hands of somebody who this resonates with already? Because I am putting mine up there.
yeah.
So I'm excited to hear your story.
So Christine, do you want to start with the tragedy that knocked your socks off, that really started this whole journey for you?
A lot of people would say that if you repeat your story, not everyone wants to hear it. But it does resonate with individuals who have I call the Me Too factor. And it is heavy because no one wants to talk about the loss of anything, especially a loved one. And one step further, as I know you are a mother. I don't know, Leanne, are you a mom as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we got some parents out there that are listening and watching this. As a parent, it is our job to protect our children and to teach them the things that we didn't have or the things that they're going to need and the tools to be successful individuals as they become adults. My life changed quite dramatically that I could not protect my child. On New Year's Day 2007, my family and I were in an auto accident. Unfortunately, my 17-year-old daughter, Nicole, was ejected from our vehicle, for which I did have to go find her. And we won't get into great detail because I don't feel that that's the part that people need to remember, how someone died versus how they lived. But it did change my life and how I view life in its entirety, and death, crazy enough, because we are here one day and gone the next. At any minute, your life can change. And that changed my life dramatically. My family fell apart. I went into a spin of many different things, financially, emotionally, physically. Grief that I had no idea could strike so hard in so many ways. But as you can see me sitting here with a smile on my face, I do and have learned to love life again, but I had to go through some trials and some tribulations. And some would say, pull up your bootstraps. Well, I wouldn't say that so much pull up your bootstraps as much as it is to accept the reality and the new norm. And as a parent, I was there. I could, and I don't want anyone to think that because they hear it's an auto accident that they're going to play it safe. 6 years after my daughter passed away, I got a phone call that my youngest sister at age 36 passed away in her sleep, leaving her two daughters behind with no parent. And so I say that because you can have one extreme to the other, and it's not going to matter. What matters is that the clock that we all have, that we don't know when our time is running out. We have the choice to be enjoying life as best as we can and still give the tools as parents, because I don't know about you guys, but I don't have all the answers. I definitely did not have all the answers that night.
We don't either.
I'm pretty sure we've said that multiple times on the show.
Yeah.
So that's my story that night. And
So
that
how did you go from the mother who had just lost your child, who I'm sure was devastated and hurt beyond belief, how did you go from that place of maybe not being sure if you could ever be happy again to rebuilding yourself or refilling yourself with life? Because I would imagine you were depressed and upset and sad for a long time.
Is this a safe place right now?
This is a safe
Absolutely.
place.
Okay, so I'm going to be honest, because the only way I feel that anyone's going to understand a particular journey such as mine is to be completely honest. And actually, that's all I know how to be. Sometimes it gets me in trouble being a little too honest and a little too loving. My daughter passed away there. I witnessed that. And the two things that have kept me, among other things, but I will bring it as a whole, is I was there when my daughter came into this world. And I was there Now, that is an
Let
interesting
me
way of
pause
looking
you
at it.
real quick, Christine, just because you broke up, and I want you to say that again because I feel like it's very important.
Okay,
You were
okay,
there when she came in to the world.
ready?
Yep.
I was there the day my daughter took her first breath, and I acknowledged it as life. And I was there the last day. Not many people get that opportunity at all. And I want to reel in something really fast too. Is my son, his birthday is December 30th. Our accident happened New Year's Eve. My daughter passed away on New Year's Day. So I have a different kind of calendar of celebrating. And that was the hardest thing for many years, is that day between celebrating my son who's alive, who had just turned 11, and then my daughter having passed away on the first day of the year. So that didn't go so well for a long time. I had to realize that this was my new life. And so the safe part that I want to share with you is I tried to take my life twice. I don't share that often, but I have lost friends who lost their children that did take their life, and they did succeed. I'm not saying that I'm proud of it, but it is part of grief that a lot of people don't understand. They think if you have the signs, there's not always a sign that's visible, and I share that with you. And the other part is I went to jail a couple of times because I decided to go towards something that was going to numb the pain. Foolishly, I was driving the first time, and I ended up in Tent City, which I don't know how many people know what Tent City is here in Phoenix. No longer exists. Oh, not a pleasant experience for 15 days. And in that time frame, my son had actually had to figure out how to take care of a household without a parent. So I failed him. I felt I failed him twice because I couldn't protect his sister. And then now I had to make him be responsible at a very young age. That was not fair. So it goes back on when I started out with how we're supposed to protect our kids and give them the tools. I wasn't giving him tools at all. I was focused on me because I didn't realize that there was more to my life than just the passing of my daughter. And I say that being vulnerable so that I can share that there is life after loss. You do have to go through some darkness, and there are other people who need you. And before you had your kids, there was you. There was you, and you were given the opportunity to live life however you do every day. So that's my vulnerable part.
Well, I just have to say that I appreciate what you're doing now and the things that Holly shared me and the things that you're going to share coming up here soon. And the give yourself grace, I think, and I'm saying this to all the listeners as well. If you're going through something like this, give yourself grace. And it's okay not to be okay. I know that's a cheesy little saying, but it's true. Like, it's absolutely true. It's okay not to be okay. It's okay to handle a situation with the best coping skills that you have at the moment. And that's okay. Because what you do with that situation, as you're going to share, is the more important thing.
Yeah, and I just want to say, like, oh, I almost started crying when you just told that story. But I feel like it's so important to just reiterate, the person that you lost isn't the whole reason you're here on Earth. You have yourself still, you have other children, you maybe have other family members. There's a purpose that you're here, otherwise you wouldn't still be here. And in Christine's case, she definitely has a purpose for being here, and she's used a lot of her pain and turned it into helping other people that have been in the same situation, which I think is very admirable. And I wanted to know if maybe you could share a little bit about what you are doing with that, like how you help other people.
So for a while there, I was actually just avoiding anything. I was just staying busy. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to just stay busy. You won't think about it. If you don't find a vice, that's a very bad habit that doesn't get you in trouble, like I just mentioned to you, not once, but twice. I stayed busy because I didn't want the pain. I didn't want to be reminded of that night. There were several times that night replayed in my head. And occasionally it still does. Now, mind you, this is the 17th year, which is called the even year, being that she was 17. And this is the 17th year that she's been gone. So it's been a little challenge because now there's that saying of, you were gone longer than I knew you. And that, and I had to stop running and making choices of either bad relationships or bad habits or just going from place to place, just, yes, enjoying life, but not really fully enjoying life. And my focus was no pain, no pain, no pain. But it just led me further away from healing versus finding a way. I didn't know there were resources. I didn't know there were groups. And I lost friendships. I lost the relationship with their dad. And he's on his own journey. And we won't get into details on that because I had to grace and forgiveness. And he suffered just as much as I did. That was the same day he remembered the same thing I do. How he lived his life. We don't live the same life, mind you, but he copes with it. And part of the journey was finding new outlets that were more positive versus hurtful. And so I wrote in a couple of books my story as a co-author. I want to say 3 books. So it's been a while. And then just, I moved away. I ran away. You know how we always say, I'm just going to run away. So we tell our kids, I'm running away. I am done with this. I did. But guess what? You don't run very far when you're taking everything with you. And I'm not talking about the physical. I'm talking about who you are as a person. You cannot run from yourself. You really have to face whatever it is. And so when my son had turned 18, he told me he was going to follow what I always told him. I said, so you really were listening all these years? What part? And he decided to go do a sales job. I was like, okay, cool. But it was in North Carolina. We're in Arizona. And I was like, why so far? But it was an opportunity because I had shared with him to always enjoy life before you settle down so that you don't have any regrets. And that was just my personal advice I could give him so I wasn't continuing a generational thing that would not have been beneficial for him as a successful adult, which he's now 29, almost 30. And he's doing pretty good, by the way. But then when he told me he was only giving me 3 days that he was leaving, I wasn't good with that. But with that said, I took advantage of that moment and I decided to go take care of some friends of mine's dogs that happened to be at the same time frame up in Cottonwood, Arizona. So I went up there. I think it was their honeymoon. And so I was at their house for a week and I was like, what else is up here besides motorcycle rallies and all these other things that I knew about that I would visit just occasionally? And I went to a job fair and I got hired on the spot to work in a spa in Sedona, Arizona. You guys familiar with Sedona?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
What's your idea?
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
What's your idea of Sedona? What is it?
What is it?
I think it's a good place for healing. I think it's divine intervention that you ended up there.
For sure.
I've gone to a couple healing retreats there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just go there and I feel all the good energy and just walking around there gives you like this sense of like safe and like well-being, and that's
Zen
just
energy.
I just go with the feeling of places, and that's one of the places where I like to go to like feel whole, I guess.
And it's beautiful, isn't it?
Oh yeah, the scenery is great.
Oh yeah.
Calming. I remember when I came back, my son came back, and I really did start over. Like, I had an F-250 and an 8x10 trailer, and I was living in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. I put my bedroom set because I knew I'd always have a place to rest my head, right? And my personal items that I could not replace. And that's what I fit between those 2 things that I just shared with you. And I started all over. I got rid of everything. Whether I donated it, gave it to Goodwill, tried to garage sale, those don't work. Leave it on the street for other people to salvage through. It was just interesting. That someone's junk is someone else's treasure is true. I watched it. I just hope it makes memories for those individuals. But I remember the first time when I drove on the road into Sedona, and I was like, wow, breathtaking, absolutely. I remember stopping, and I asked someone, I said, how in the world do you deal with this? It's so beautiful. And I kid you not, this individual said to me, you get used to it. And I went, get used to it. Oh, I never took advantage. I never took for granted that view. And so I started my new life having rented a room from a very, very long time dear friend of mine who had just come back from Iraq, serving his third tour. And he's like, you can rent a room from me. And I said, okay, well, here's the other part. I'm a city girl. I have been my whole life. I went from the city to the country in the middle of nowhere. Cornville, Arizona. I set my roots there, and I rented a room. And he had a ranch with horses and chickens, and you name it. Charlotte's Web had just arrived.
From the city to horses and chickens.
Which is why I have such a piece about horses, because they really are, equine therapy is for real. And I remember working at the spot. It's called Mi Amo. It's still there. It's on the property of Enchantment in Sedona, and I was there for a couple of years. Little did I know that while I was there helping other people on their personal journeys of healing, I even met some famous individuals, regular people who had money, and all walks of life. Little did I know that I was being programmed by this, and it started changing me. And I will tell you that
helping to heal others helped to heal you. And maybe changing your scenery helped a little bit too for a little while. Getting away.
Here's the thing too, and I know you can relate, and so other people can. We usually think that if we disappear, that the people that we thought cared about us will check on us. You find out who really cares about you when you all of a sudden do it. I'm not thinking about like just die. You're like, you're around, but they're not checking on you. And that was a realization of the people I thought were my tribe, my friends, were not there. So I was in a whole new world all by myself. And I had to really look at myself every day, not really like in the mirror, but look at myself and what I was doing, why I was there. I thought I ran away, and I actually found that I was finding peace. And you don't have to run away to Sedona, but sometimes we do have to sit, and I'm sure you ladies can agree. We just have to sit in our time, in our space, and wherever you want to call your space, or run away, or a closet, or up a hill, we need it. We really do.
There's no rush to healing, and you can't run away from it. You can't rush it. I think you just have to allow it to happen, and for everyone that's going to be different, what that looks like. For you tried to run away, but like you said, you brought it with you there, and it still found its way through you, whether you wanted it to or not. Like, it's like something, like a window with which you're going to view the new world, and a window with which people are viewing you too, because these big things have happened to you that you can't change, and people are seeing that, and you're seeing it as you see other people too. So whether you try and run from it or not, it's with you, and it's going to affect the rest of your life. And like you said, this is your new life now. So you took this new life, and you were helping people, but they were also helping you, which I just think is so beautiful that you said that. Like,
I think that if you're open to anything, like open to healing, or open to grieving, or open to any sort of feeling, that feeling's going to present itself to you in some different type of way. That's just how it works.
Even if you're not open to it, I think
is awesome like that.
Yeah, even if you're not open to it, I feel like you get chances. Like, the universe is like, okay, let's heal. Okay, let's heal. And you could say no, 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 and then it just keeps sort of presenting itself, because it's like a wound that just wants to be healed. So the opportunity to heal it will just keep coming up.
Well, ladies, I am certain that there are some people that present themselves as a healed person, and in fact, they're not. They're actually unhealed, because they haven't done the work. We've heard the phrase, do the work. Well, I didn't know there was any work involved. I was working for someone else, and then I had to look at myself and go, oh, you know what? I don't want to feel that way anymore. I don't want to be worried about whether someone likes me or not, or if I'm going to be depressed, or I'm going to get in trouble again. I actually had to look inside and say, how do I truly want to live my life? Am I really showing up as a healed version of myself or claiming to be a healed version because I had a story? There's a definite difference. Everyone has something in their life that they can claim as their story, but that's not meaning that they're healed. And I'm certain that you know some people like that. I know I do. And it shows. It shows on how they show up in their personal life and how they treat other people in their communities or in their family life, for that matter.
You're freezing a little bit, Christine.
I gotcha.
Yeah, we'll edit that part out, but or at this part out. We'll edit this part out. But yeah, it froze a little bit, but I think we got what you were saying. So
yeah, I think most of the audio,
yeah.
But yeah, there are people that appear to be healed but aren't healed, and you do have to do the work.
I don't know. I kind of, my perspective on healing is that it's an ongoing process.
Yeah, that's
so true. When you say I'm healed, you may be healed from a certain circumstance, but you're always working and progressing in the direction.
Yeah, I think I agree with that too.
So that's kind of what I think.
There's no such thing as healed.
I mean, just like this podcast, there's no such thing as being, okay, I'm all grown up now, I know everything there is to know. You know, it's like the same with healing. Like, you can move past a situation and be at peace with that situation like you are with your daughter. But I don't think that anybody's like a complete, fully healed person. So.
No, especially when life happens with triggers. We can all be triggered by something in our life that makes us feel uncomfortable. Or the triggers isn't always a bad thing. A trigger can be a reminder of something that is good too. But we re-identify triggers as a negative, and there are some things that have come up, but like you said, we're always going to be on a healing journey. But how much do you always want to say, I've moved past this, or I've gotten past that, until something knocks you down again, right? Because you didn't know that, we'll call it a wave, comes in and knocks you down, and you go, where did that come from? I thought I was over that. So I want to encourage people to never, ever, ever tell someone to get over it, whatever that is. It's an individual thing.
Oh yeah, you can't tell someone how to heal or how to, what the timeline looks like. The timeline's different for everybody. Did you have an experience where somebody told you get over it, like it's time to be done? It's time for you to move on?
So there's a couple of things. I like to call them an etiquette I'd love to teach people. Never tell someone, oh, so do you have other children? As a child, never. I did have something recently just come about that actually broke my heart. I really want to mentor young ladies turning into women who we don't know where they're coming from in their homestead, or they do not have a parent that's active in their life because they've got their own situations going on as a parent, right? And I had someone said, I am so grateful I got to know you this last 3 years, and you went through the training, you did great. But I don't want to trigger you in case something comes up in one of these girls' lives that we'll talk about something you're going to be able to identify with your trauma and your tragedy. I went, let me be the one that decides that. I'm the one that showed up right here. I know what I have to offer, and I know what I want to give. And I say that because this is the second time I'm going to share this. I know this because when we came back from winter break, most kids, I don't believe they do it anymore because I made a big deal out of it in my school district for my son, was when you come back from winter break, everyone wants to share what they did on winter break, right? Sometimes that included an essay. My son was barely 11, very traumatic. He did not want to know that he didn't want anyone to know, rather, that his sister died. And he told me, I'm going to school, I don't want anyone to know. Oh my God, talk about death in the heart and going through death in a different direction. So my son ended up being asked by the teacher, because that was their project, to write about their winter break. He told him exactly. And I have it still to this day. And he got graded on it. He got a C. How do you grade someone on a real life story? Life changing, for that matter. That didn't settle well with me because there were consequences to that I had to deal with my son. So to come back to the mentoring thing, I now have shared that letter. It's a 4-page project that my son had written, in detail, mind you. And I presented it to this person, and I said, I'm going to go ahead and just say, I'm going to decline being a mentor for your program. I don't think it's going to be a good fit if you feel that I'm going to trigger rather than help, because I know what I have to offer. But I want to share a little bit of insight about something personally so that you will understand your middle-aged kids that are turning into young men and women, that you may not know that even though you say you're providing a safe space and place, I'm telling you that's not always the case. And I shared this letter with this individual. I said, please use this as a learning tool. Now, I say that because I really feel it's this powerful learning tool for anybody of any age. When we walk through life, we truly don't know what someone's going through. I know it's so cliche, but it's the honest truth. And that is how I live my life. Is
so.
Go ahead.
So, thank you for sharing that. That's pretty powerful. I do want to say that I am a social worker for the state. So if you need to, and my happy place is working with teenagers turning into young adults. So if you ever want to talk about that realm, we can definitely do that. Yeah, that's kind of like my passion project, is the young adult program stuff within the state. So yeah,
you never know what these kids are going through, like, really.
Yeah. So now that you've worked past this and you're in the stage, it sounds like, tell me if I'm wrong, that you want to put outwards what you've learned to other people. Are you doing anything now? Do you have any projects going directly related to grief and loss?
I have my ladies retreat, which Miss Holly was one of my special speakers, and I was very happy to have her. Not having met her prior to that, knowing anything about her, but I believed in what she wants to do and met my mission. And I know she's going to do well, Holly, with the things that you are in the path that you're supposed to be. I did have the opportunity, I guess this would now be the time, is I was approached. Not only did I share with you, I had my story in 3 different books as one of the I think they call them what do they call it? I forget what the technical name is. But a couple of years ago, I was approached with 6 other women to share our stories in a movie called Fortis Femina. And crazy enough, I wasn't sure what to say. And I said, I'm not sure if I want to revisit that trauma again, because that's a huge thing in my life. So I said, I need to talk to my son because I need to be respectful of my son. I told my son to ask his dad if that's okay, because this is our personal life and people want to stay private, right? Mm-hmm. And they said it would be the most honoring thing to do for my daughter's legacy, my legacy, because I'm still here. But it's a true story that many parents deal with that don't always get to talk about. Society doesn't know how to talk about death, and I don't think it ever will. It's hard, as you probably can.
I agree. Yeah, we've talked about that previously on the podcast before. So
I try to find a way where it's not so difficult, to where you still can be the light in the darkness or share your smile when someone needs it. And so I did take on the opportunity to share my story, as well as my first acting role, my own role. Oh my goodness. That was a lot. It did bring me back. But crazy enough, like the story, like the experience I told you about moving to Sedona and getting on a path I didn't know was going to be a healing journey, doing that movie was even a different level. I can't even explain to people that It made me realize the value of life on, on an exponential level. It's hard to describe. But to know that when it was viewed and has won awards in the film festival circuit, that it did exactly what it was supposed to do. My story, along with 6 other women who have different stories, touched people in the audiences that needed to hear a Me Too factor. And that helped me, knowing that I didn't have to be quiet about losing my daughter. Other mothers said, I didn't know how to express it. No one wants to. So that was a huge milestone. And the crazy part is, when I'd learned about this, I hadn't even sat down for the table read on the script. Guess where it was at, and no one knew where I had come from?
Sedona.
That's crazy. Nothing happens in coincidence, right?
Nope, no such thing as coincidence.
We say that all the time.
I had a question. My brain blinked.
When we did the table read and I saw where the setting was, I was like, God, are you kidding? Really? I got to relive the healing part and the pain part? It didn't work out. And I'm not saying everybody has that opportunity, but it worked out for me so I can show up as a representation of lost family.
One thing that is a big thing that I'm hearing you talk about is you had, when instead of running, like you started running from your story, from the thing that had happened to you that was really painful. You didn't want to look at it. But I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of your healing was done in sharing your story. You said you were in 3 different books. You were in this movie where you shared your story. You relived your story, being the actress that played the part for your own story. Mm-hmm. And with every time that you shared your story, and I imagine every time that you told somebody or helped somebody else through their own grief, and then every time the time going through this movie and then watching the movie and knowing that it helped people, I would imagine each one of those pieces was a piece of your healing journey. And I think that that's a big takeaway for listeners. They need to recognize that running from our pain is not ever going to help us heal the pain. It's in the holding it, in the speaking about it, and the allowing it to be used to help other people, that really you find so much healing. And I just think that's powerful. I think it's beautiful. I think it's brave. And I think that the world needs people like you that are going to talk about these really hard things. They're hard. They're ugly. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to hear about it. But it's important. And I just want to thank you for sharing that story with so many people and for doing these hard things like making the decision to be in this movie, because your story has power. It has power to inspire people and to know that they're not alone and that you can heal through these things that are, just so terrible, that hurt so much you don't even want to think about them, much less talk about them.
Right. Have you heard of find the comfort in pain? Or something like that. That's kind of what it reminds me of. Like find the comfort in the pain, and then that's when you can be at peace with whatever you're going through.
Yeah, that easier said than done, but yeah.
I have not. I've lived it. I still continue. There's not a day that does not go by that I don't think about my daughter Nicole or my sister Lisa. I don't want to forget her. 36 years old when she passed away. I was 37 when my daughter passed. Several years difference my baby sister and I are, but there's a time frame that I will forever remember, and there's another time frame that I have forgotten because the trauma didn't allow me to move forward because I chose to stay frozen in the pain. So yes, I understand what.
Yeah, I think that frozen part applies to everybody too. You go through a phase where you are hurting so bad that you can't move forward. And that time period's going to be different for everybody. But once you get kind of a handle on it, then you can choose to start working through it. Like you tried to numb it and you got yourself into some trouble and then realized after the trouble, I don't want to do this. This isn't the life I want to live. So then you tried running away. And through the running away, you were able to heal. And I think, like Leanna said, you being open to that really helped you. You know, you wanted to help other people, and that allowed you to help yourself too. And I think that everybody's journey is going to look a little bit different, but you'll have an opportunity to heal along the way, and I think that that's cool.
It's easy to say where we feel, I think you just said comfortable, but that comfortable hurting you. So it's always hard to push past what I say this best. We only know what we know until something else has been presented or someone else has shown us something different. And I think that's where that comfort and that pain comes into place. Is if you have someone such as myself and other individuals who have shown that you can move past that, never to forget, and you will always have those moments you're going to go back, but you got to keep moving forward because the clock keeps moving forward too.
Yeah, that's so true. So you shared that you shared your story in these books. You were part of the movie, which we'll link up whatever we can. It's still in the film festival circuit, right? But we'll try to update whatever link that we have so that when it is available for the public to view, that they could view it. And I'll link maybe the trailer for now, so that people can kind of at least see the trailer and see what it is that you've been a part of, which was so cool. But talk a little more about your retreats. What are they called? How do people find them? And what are they like? What do you focus on at the retreats?
So another part of the healing was, this is the crazy part. So when I was living in Cornville, there's no corn there, by the way. I had a chore that I took on myself, and that was to always take care of the animals. I found peace in it. And I don't want to say it was in the middle of the night. I don't know what time of day it was, but I know it was in the darkness of the day. So when we go to sleep, if it's early in the morning or late at night, I don't know. And I heard this voice, and I say this with humor. I wasn't drinking.
You weren't on mushrooms.
I wasn't sober. I was so sober. But I woke up with this voice saying, you need to share your story, and you need to have other people share theirs. And I was like, hello. Don't know where that voice came from, but that's going to be a no. Because people do not just come up to you and tell you everything about their life. Because we want to stay private, right?
That is not the case with me. Random strangers tell me their story all the time. Just FYI.
Yeah,
but for most people, I would agree.
Yeah, we're pretty open books here.
Like I'll be in a Circle K, and the person behind the counter will tell me their story, and I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, go.
And vice versa, I think too.
Yeah. But anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you on that. But continue your story.
And I go, okay, I need to put that boundary up. I have to figure out what that boundary is, because we do have to have boundaries. I have learned in the last few years that people will take advantage of you, or they will manipulate you. Whatever the boundaries you need to set up, you need to set that for you. And that includes getting too much information about someone that you're like, I don't need that energy like you just shared. Or what to say when they're probably reaching out to say, I just need someone to acknowledge me. I think that's what you deal with, like I do. I had the opportunity to move back to the valley, but I ended up moving into the East Valley, which is in Chandler, Arizona. And I only knew one other individual besides the person I was living with. In that situation, I was like, oh no, what did I just do? So I rented a house from another individual that I learned and met through living in the community. And I'm sitting on the curb outside the home that I was renting. And there's that voice again. But now it's in the middle of the day, and I'm sitting there watching the sunset. And I feel this pressure on my chest. You need to share your story, and you need to ask other people. And I go, what does this mean? So it wasn't going to go away. I moved back, and it was still with me. And so as I got familiar with my community and I felt trust with a couple of individuals, I said, this is what's been on my heart. And one of them is a very dear friend of mine. She's very set in her faith, and I look up to her, and she's always been there for me. And she says, we got to do something with it. And I go, what? What am I supposed to do with it? So she got me in contact with someone who did satellite podcasting. And I said, oh, no. This girl didn't even like to take pictures, let alone sit in front of a camera that's live and a microphone. Ah, that's not happening. Wrong.
And look at you now.
Look at me now, baby. So I ended up going through that process of understanding how to be in front of a camera, nervous as anything, which I still have that feeling from time to time. And I started my own podcast in 2019 and was in a studio last year.
And tell people what it's called so that they can find it. I know you're taking a break, but so they can find any.
Stories of Hope. You can find it on YouTube. You can email me, Stories of Hope AZ. I hope to actually have it go back probably next year, because the end of the year has come to where I have some other things I need to take care of on this one year of being the even year of my daughter. I want to make sure that it's going to be the way that I left off on it. And that Stories of Hope was just that pressure and that midnight call that said, you are going to ask people to share their story. And so many people have. And it changed me even yet again. To sit here and say I have my story, there are people that have so much more. And they are still running with life. And it's just a beautiful thing. I've shared nonprofit organizations because they're very, very dear to my heart. Philanthropy is. And I learned why some of these organizations were founded based on someone's story. I've had the privilege of sitting down with the Arizona Heart Association, the Phoenix Children's Hospital, the Miracle Network, the Ronald McDonald House, and then just regular ones that are making a difference for suicide, for homelessness, you name it. And I'm just like, okay, I am one person, and I feel like I'm being God by having to have all these people sharing their stories. And I am so grateful, because it again makes me say, you've got this, but I don't think you can handle that. And those people are handling that. And so for me to share their stories, to give hope to other people, and the Me Too factor has been the biggest blessing in my life. And it's my legacy.
That's so beautiful. I would imagine, it's hard. I try to avoid movies that make me cry on purpose because I don't like to cry. But sometimes we need to hear these painful stories and see what people do with them, because it's not just about the tears that you cry. It's about the rebuilding of yourself and the hope that people still have. And that's the most beautiful part of this whole life thing. Like, these terrible things are going to happen to everybody, but there's always hope.
And talking about it makes it more normal. I think you had mentioned that earlier, how, just sharing things creates the normalcy around talking about them. And that's kind of a philosophy that we like to ensue in the podcast too. So we have similar values and views for sure.
Yeah. So how did you go from just doing the Stories of Hope to doing the retreats too? Where did the retreats come into that?
So in 2020, again, one of those things, well, how do I share a story, and how can I find a new group of people living in a city I'd never lived in, and figuring out who they are. And so I started the retreat, and this was my 4th year, and it was a retreat that the very first one, I had some ladies come together, and it was a drink fest. I wasn't drinking because I already don't do the consequences that go with the drinking thing, right? But that wasn't the kind of retreat I was looking for, where you just go to a spa or you go out to the local bars and you drink and you're just a bunch of girls together. That's what that one was, because that's what I didn't know what I was trying to do. And I was like, it's not an epic fail, but it's not the healing that I was looking for. And so moving forward, I found individuals who were able to give a message that I had no expertise in. And one of the things I wanted to make sure I did was making sure that women who have, and you can relate, you have different responsibilities in your family and what society puts on you, right? And that can be very heavy. And that's why we break sometimes, or a lot of the times. And I wanted to find a way that not only do we go and get away from all those things that are constantly on us, or the responsibilities, but to be able to come back from getting away and really be able to embrace what you felt going away. I don't know about you, But how many times have you gone to some sort of a convention and there's a bunch of hype and gets you excited, right?
Yes.
And then you come back home and you're like,
now what?
right? The people aren't there. The energy is not there. The connection's not there. People, as you and I know, will say, "Oh yeah, we'll get in touch. We'll keep in touch." Life happens. That doesn't always happen, right? I wanted to make sure that whatever I provided through the people I trusted with the information they had that I didn't know, that we could walk away from a good time, a good connection, and be able to take that into our lives with that continued peace that we had found, like I did on my journey prior to that. And this last time, it was a big vision of mine to involve equine therapy. And by the blessing of the day, we'll say, I met a lady who was up there in your area in Springerville. And I went to meet her, and I thought it was going to be a quick 30 minutes. It was like 4 hours. We just connected so well. And so she was a part of my retreat excursion this last year. And I watched some women who have come back I didn't think I was going to see come back the way that they do with the peace in their lives. And that is where I knew that we needed to have more than just a retreat, but we needed to have the tools, the connection, and the feeling of what we had, so that when we're alone, we're not feeling that we're really alone.
Yeah, you know what I love about retreats is you bond with these other women that are there. You're there for a couple days, but you see some of their deepest, darkest secrets, their real stuff. They share their real stuff with you, and you connect with these women in a way that you wouldn't connect with people normally. And you form these friendships with people that last years. And I love that. I love that part about a retreat. And I had another question too. I was going somewhere with this. This is what happens to my brain. This is Holly's brain in the afternoon. She does weird things. When you were talking about the retreats, I lost it again. Ask a question, Leanna, while I'm remembering this.
Put me on the spot, why
don't
you?
No pressure.
I don't know. How often do the retreats happen? Can you let the listeners know a little bit more about, like, how often, when, how can they find them? That's what I'm asking for me, really.
That's a good question.
But for other people who are listening.
So they were only just intended for annually, but because I had such a great outpour of support, and a situation changed where I actually had to turn some women away and the location. That really hurt. But then when I was in it, I realized that I wasn't ready for that bigger step. Now I'm ready for the bigger steps. Where I have women who messaged me afterwards and said, "So when are you having the next one? Because I really want to go." And I thought to myself, you know what? Maybe this needs to be more than just annually, because healing isn't once a year. It's every day. And getting away isn't always just driving in our car or somewhere away from our home. Sometimes it's necessary on a regular basis to connect, disconnect, and reconnect. So next year I am working on having 2 as opposed to an annual, because now I have more to work with and more of the foundation and structure and the people that I can trust to make sure that it will happen in all parts of it.
And how is it named anything or called anything? Can people look it up online or reach out to you?
If I don't have anything online, I don't have a website because I usually just wait until then. That's why I said I have to give some time for this year being what it is, where it's going to be much bigger, to where it can be found, and more sponsorships. I actually had sponsorships, good name sponsorship. I actually want to have it where the women get grants. I want this so refined that there's not a reason why someone can't go because they don't have the money. I want it to be where you go and you have nothing to worry about. And so there's still some things I have to tweak on that. So I'll have to get more on that.
Yeah, when you're ready to,
go ahead.
When you're ready to launch this whole thing, let us know and we will be glad to share on our social media.
Yeah, and you can follow Christine Hotchkiss on her social media. Usually she shares things on there when she is going to be having the retreat. And I remember what I was going to ask. It's in regards to actually sharing things. So you had talked about how a couple people came to your retreat that you did not think would ever want to come to a retreat. And they signed up and said, hey, I want to come to your retreat. And you were surprised, but also like very happy. And I think that there's power into sharing what it is you're doing, because people need it. It goes back to that not knowing what's going on with people. People will need it, and they'll be ready for it at the most unlikely random times. So share what you're going through, share what things have helped you, because you never know when it's going to help somebody else. And you sharing that you're doing a retreat, all of a sudden you have this outpouring of people that want to be involved in the retreat. And if you are a person that wants to be involved in these retreats, you can always reach out to Christine. Or if you want to be a sponsor for these retreats, because how cool would it be to sponsor somebody that wants to go to one of these healing retreats but can't afford to?
Finances.
Yeah. And so if you're a person that has been blessed financially and you are really looking to give back, please get in touch with Christine and talk to her about sponsoring a spot for somebody, because that'd be just awesome.
Yeah, two of the ladies, this is interesting that you brought this up. One of the ladies I know personally in the community also lost her son. And she shared, we won't get into great detail because that's something that should stay there. And you already said this, Holly, like you don't want to watch anything that makes you cry. Well, this individual was not going to cry. She made it known. It's recorded when we did our horse therapy. I'm not going to cry. If you're going to make me cry, good luck is what she said. We got so into her, not even realizing we got into her, and the equine therapy just made her go, wow. I saw her cry. And I've known her for a long time.
Never seen her cry, man.
No, and I've watched her since we went back, so not so on the feels of I'm not gonna cry versus expressing what she's doing. It's actually doing great. And then another lady, I didn't even remember her from a long time ago. She's like, I remember you when you were in the West Valley. And I was like, I am so sorry. I must have been in a really unhealthy part of my life, which I thought I was on the healing part, which is why I mentioned earlier. And I was in that capacity at that time. I didn't realize that was not the capacity that would continue forward as I've grown. And she actually, I didn't think was going to show up. She kept saying, well, you know how some people like kick tires on stuff. And she actually showed up. She and I have had lunch a couple of different times. I just feel so much better. And I watched her social media stuff completely changed. Even comments were made from people that know her and said, oh my gosh, you are so much lighter on your posts and you're smiling. And I was like, oh my God, it has nothing to do with me, ladies. Honestly, it has nothing to do with me. I provided the space. Mm-hmm. I had people like Holly. I had an icon. Her name is Mary Jo West. Be there. The equine therapy. I mean, just everything worked so well that it was the timing for that individual. And you talked about connections. We all want to be accepted. We want to be loved. We want to be validated. And we want connect. So when you go to retreat in hopes of those things, that's not always what you walk away from. Sometimes it's a matter of where you are at that particular moment that is meant for you. And the people you may not have the connections with, but you got what I just shared on the story. So you got to go in with an open heart.
I love that you said that, because you do. You have to go in with an open heart. And when the situation is right, and there's people like Christine that are setting the stage and giving you the atmosphere where healing is possible,
the safe space.
Yeah, you can connect with these other people. You can do some healing work. And not every retreat, like you said, not every retreat you're going to leave feeling like, wow, I have healed everything. I am ready to be a whole new human. But when given the opportunity, sometimes you can walk away lighter, feeling like there's somebody that understands you.
Or with tools and extra added support.
Yeah, and you walk away with, like you said, you wanted your retreats to be something that they could take home with them, and wasn't just, you know, oh, everybody get hyped and we'll feel good while we're here, and then you leave and it's just normal when you go back home, you know. If you are in a safe space and you can connect with these other humans, and the person facilitating the retreat is a good person that, like you are, that wants those things, that those are their goals, you can take these tools and these things home with you, and you can feel lighter, and people will notice that, and you will be changed without having to try to be changed. It will be an evolutionary change that just sort of happens, a breakthrough in your healing journey.
And then it just snowballs from there, folks. I'm just saying.
Yes, it does.
Well, to kind of wrap things up, do you have any famous last words you like to say on podcasts or anything like that you would
tips
like
or tools
listeners to have in their healing journeys?
Yeah.
Healing, no matter what it is, your personal journey. Don't ever feel like you have to be present the way society thinks you should be present how you can be. Sometimes you need to remove yourself from people or situations. Do not apologize. Don't apologize at all. We spend so much time apologizing for who we are rather than accepting who we are and sharing with people as, this is who I am at this time. This is who I am because of where I've been. And don't be ashamed of your journey. You just might inspire somebody with the Me Too factor.
Ugh, I love that.
Me too.
I just want to say I appreciate you, Holly, for connecting me with her. And then I appreciate you, Christine, for sharing your story. It's the first time I've heard it. And so I know that you and Holly have, shared some things back and forth. But I really appreciate your time today and being vulnerable with us as well, because that's difficult for some people, but I also think that your story is going to help somebody who listens to this. So thank you.
I'm proud of you for using your journey to help other people, because that's not always easy. In fact, it's actually very hard. And you're delving into that pain on a consistent basis in order to help other people with their pain. And that is brave and beautiful and wonderful. And I just want to thank you for that. And anybody that wants to get in touch with Christine, make sure you follow her on Facebook, Instagram, and go check out Stories of Hope on YouTube, and connect with her any way you want, especially if you want to be a sponsor for her retreats. That would be awesome.
Or even go.
Yeah, or go. They're cool.
We'll have Holly as my speaker, one of my speakers.
Whoop, whoop.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your story and you allowing us to share it.
Thank you for wanting to share it and giving me a safe space to share it, even the vulnerable parts.
Awesome. Yeah, vulnerability is beautiful.
All right, folks. Well, I hope you enjoyed our session with Christine here, and give us a like, follow, share if you guys like what you heard today, and
definitely share with somebody that has been grieving, that needs maybe some additional support with their grief.
Yes, absolutely. Awesome. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you, Christine, again.